It's always a delight to come to these speaker sessions and talk to the professionals who are either thinking about product management or are young product managers. And there's so much to learn from each other whenever I have come into these sessions. So I come to these sessions with open mind. Feel free to bring in your ideas, share your thinking, ask questions as we go about this presentation today. Okay, with that, let's start talking about some Ponzi schemes, right? Isn't that why we are here today? No, not really. Product management. Okay, that's not bad either. So we learned about big rocks of product management. First, the introductions. So Brian talked briefly about me. I have 15 years of product management experience. I have engineering and MBA educational background. Currently, I work at Kaiser Permanente, the healthcare giant organization, as portfolio manager. Before that, almost for a decade, I worked in Microsoft as a management consultant, where I got an opportunity to work on really cool products and programs. In my life, outside of work, I'm really passionate about mentoring and teaching. I teach product management certification courses. I mentor young aspiring product managers. And this winter, I'll be teaching digital marketing certification course through UW. So that's there. I also root for women in technology and women in workspace, especially women in leadership positions. So we want to break that glass ceiling. And I serve or sit on executive boards for a lot of nonprofit organizations that work for women. So exciting work. It's an exciting life, and I'm always happy to live. Every day is exciting and brings new opportunities, so I enjoy every day. So I'll be talking about the science of tools and frameworks. So how do we tackle big rocks of product management using tools and frameworks? And what are those? Tools and framework is, again, a very shifting landscape. Tools that are relevant today are not relevant tomorrow. Tools that were relevant yesterday are not anymore, don't even exist anymore today. So what tools we'll talk about today are something that exists today and people are latching onto them, they are talking about them. So something for you to experiment with, to go check them out and learn about those tools for that specific area. But if there are other tools that you may have used or you are using, we would love to learn about that too, because again, there is no one set of tool, right? There are different tools exist, and people and companies and teams use tools based on their own needs as it suits them. So you can have a little bit different library or some other tools in mind. So it would be great to share that too. Art of building your custom toolbox. So selecting tools that work for how do you build your own toolbox from the 1,000+ tools that exist today? So what are some of the guidance around when you're thinking about tools for yourself? And then beyond tools, how do you set product managers up for success? Tools is one thing. Tools is something, the tools and the frameworks is the science part of it, but there is a lot of art part of it into the product management that goes into making product managers successful. And then the closeout, where I would like to, that would be the time for you to ask your questions, share your thoughts, and share your stories if you would like to. Okay, without further ado, let's just dive into our first agenda item for today. Okay, I'll give you a second to absorb this. So what are tools and framework? Why do we even need them? Tools help us do our work more effectively and efficiently. Tools can be anything from paper, pen, whiteboard, PowerPoints to all these SaaS applications that exist today, from web and mobile tools that exist. Anything that helps us to achieve a task effectively and efficiently. I think of product manager as handyman. They need to have all kinds of tools in their arsenal, and depending upon the need of your conversation, of your needs, you should be able to take out that tool. So you can have a screwdriver that would work for your needs, to a sawmill or whatever automated machine that you need for your needs. So it depends. So the first big rock of product management is identification and planning. The most of the time, or the bulk of the time, any product manager spends in the product management lifecycle is identification. And there is no specific tool for identification. You talk to your customers, you talk to your business stakeholders, you get the vision, you get the plan. So there are like a lot of diverse ingredients that go into identification of what do you really want to build. for your organization, for your product. What does your product vision looks like? And the input for that comes from variety of places that you can think of. And every input, the more data that you can gather, that goes into identification of what you really want to build or what the product vision looks like, the more closer to building the right product you will be. So you want to collect from as many diverse sources data as much you can. And then planning. So how do you go about doing planning? So that's where, so identification, when you really collect the things that you really, or the vision for your product, then you build a roadmap. And then product backlog and prioritization are some of the tools that you use to identify and plan for your product. So talking about product roadmap, what is a roadmap? Roadmap is a visual representation of aligning product vision with business goals and timeline. And I will just show you a visual of how a product roadmap looks like. But it is just basically along a timeline you want to show how what are the features, or what are at a portfolio level, what are the products you want to roll out that would align with your company's strategic objectives. So if your company's strategic objective is to grow your membership, we need to grow our customer base or grow our membership, then what are the things that you are going to do again, and what are the metrics that would support in those for those feature rollout, and when you are going to roll them out, is what product roadmap is. And it sounds kind of confusing, but next slide I'll show you how it looks. Before that, I just want to really quickly share the tools. So PowerPoint and AHA. AHA is one of the very, I guess, hyped tool right now. I shouldn't say hype, but I mean, the people are finding it useful too, and people talk about it, and we don't necessarily use it in our organization. And having been part of Microsoft for such a long time, we never looked outside for any other tool. We only used all of our tools. So PowerPoint, Excel, Visio were my tools, and TFS were my tools that I played with for the most of my life. And healthcare, because it is so restrictive, we can't even use any third-party applications. So we have to use our own applications. So I'm not privy, I haven't used it myself, but from all the people that I talk to, my counterparts, my own mentors, they talk about AHA, and a lot of other organizations are using AHA. So something to look into. So this is how a roadmap looks like. So you have different features or different products that you want to roll out in different swim lanes against the timeline when you want to roll out. Now this is how in AHA is almost a similar tool where you can, so this you can build in a PowerPoint and present it. But with AHA, the benefit people who use AHA is that you can directly transfer it to Jira, where people generally do their planning with their team for delivery of their, so the development and engineering team and the product teams do their planning sessions in Jira. So you can very conveniently do that. So this is how a roadmap would look like if you were to do it in AHA. And then with that, we move into product backlog. So now whatever you create in your roadmap, you put it into your product backlog. And backlog can have a dump of number of items, and not just the new features or new products that you want to develop, but it can also have your bugs. It can also have your some other improvement ideas, your research item, your performance-based items or tasks that you want to deliver. So it's kind of a backlog is a very tactical term that is used by engineering and product teams to basically dump all the materials there, and then the teams go through prioritization of work. So a lot of times a question is asked, then what is the difference between product roadmap and product backlog? So product roadmap is very executive speak, something that you use to share with your business stakeholders, with your executive team that has goal, that has vision, that has timeline and metric. But a backlog is very tactical that you use with your engineering teams to plan, to prioritize, to mark tasks as completed or in progress or still due for to be taken up by their engineering teams. Going back to the slide again, so product backlog, some of the tools that work really well for teams when they are putting or dumping all that items in one backlog list is Jira, Trello, and ClickUp is also a very new tool that's coming up. Again, these tools, because they are popular because of the ease of use, that there is not a lot of learning curve. Anyone who is even new to that tool can work with that really quickly. And and they have integration with different tools. So you don't have to manually copy. And a lot of times project managers, what they did was they spent a lot of time just copying and pasting and making documents and keeping documents in sync, keeping different, everything up to date and current. But now with all these new tools, the first is ease of use, and second is these tools are integrated with different other tools, so you don't have to, for reporting or for rollout, you don't have to do things again, copy and paste them into separate tools. So this is a snapshot of a backlog. So you saw how a roadmap looks like, which you present to your executives and business stakeholders. But when you are talking to your engineering team, then this is how a backlog looks like, where you have it broken down from your epic to features to user stories. And then user stories are what your engineering team would decide on, that what user stories we can consume for this sprint and which ones can we work on and which ones we think we can deliver. The next is prioritization. So how do you do prioritization? First, as a product manager, you do prioritization with your, what has worked for me in the past. So there is no one specific rule. Whatever works with your team. How it has worked really well for me is I work first with the business in prioritization of the features that they think align with their goals. And we do that one prioritization. Second is then I bring engineering in. And then, so I don't do prioritization in isolation with just our business stakeholders, but also I bring engineering in for their thinking, for their input, that this is how a prioritized list looks like by our business partner. This is how they would like this work to be delivered. And this is what is most important for them. Stand grand in their order. But a lot of times engineering also has feedback. And they would say that, oh, you have this work here, but if we club this work with this work here, then we have maximum efficiency. And probably these four work, if we bring this up here, then probably we can bundle this all together and we can push this out quicker than doing it separately. So that's also a great input to have from engineering team when you are rolling out this, when you are having this prioritization discussion. It cannot be in isolation with your business stakeholders only. And then so it's an ongoing conversation. Not necessarily I would bring both the teams in together, but I would have a separate conversation with their business because it is more strategic, and then with engineering teams because it is a little bit more tactical. But if there are some great differences, then I would go back to my business teams and ask for their confirmation that if there is not a big gap in how they are looking at it, can we make those changes as recommended by engineering teams. And this also helps engineering. A lot of times you will hear from engineering team that they feel they are left out from a lot of discussion. But you want to, as a product manager, again, that's all of this is science of it, but the art of it is how do you feel all the teams involved and they feel that they are also playing critical role in making those strategic decisions versus things being thrown at them over the fence that, hey, this is what you need to, hey, design team, go and just do this. Hey, engineering team, we need and go and do this. So you want to make sure that it's a collective decision and they are also getting an opportunity to be part of how you are planning this to deliver this work. So there are some techniques that are very popular for prioritization. The Kano model, very popular. I don't know if you've heard about it or if you've seen the graph. And then buy a feature is also extremely popular and a fun way to do prioritization in a smaller team. And then a Moscow model. And we'll talk about Moscow in a second because that's what I have primarily used in prioritization with my business stakeholders and our engineering teams. And the tools, I have done that in Excel in the past, but again, you can do prioritization in AHA. So now this is how Moscow prioritization looks like. And Moscow stands for must have, should have, could have, and would have. And O's are put there just so to make it easier to remember and it becomes a word versus just a bunch of acronyms thrown in together. So that's why the word Moscow. But what I would do with my team is list all the features in an Excel and then ask them to club them into must have, should have, and could have. So A, B, and C. So we would go through that list and then I would ask them to call that out. Is that A or B or C? And A is must have, that you can't live without that. And B is could have, and then third one is, the B is should have, and third one is could have or nice to have feature. So once doing that A, B, and C, so you have made 3 groups of features that are must have: A, B, should have, and then C, could have. You go and stack rank from the list of bucket of A. So must have, you stack rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then could have, then after 5, probably say 5 features are there in must have. Then you go to should have, and then you start from 6, 7, 8, 9. And then you move to the third bucket, the C bucket, or could have or nice to have, and then you stack rank further down. That's how I have gotten my list of prioritized features from my business stakeholders. Again, there is another very easier, simpler technique for MVP, 80-20 rule. So what is it? What are those features that would give you 80% of the, with 20% of the effort, will give you 80% of the result? So you don't want to, when you're rolling your MVP out, you are still trying the market, you are still testing your customer, and you want to have the feedback. So you don't want to spend a lot of time in getting your product right, or not right, but perfect. You want to take those, and bells and whistles take a lot of time. But what is it? What is it that core, something that would help your product achieve the goal and with the minimum effort, but it would have maximum impact. So how can you club them together? How can you you work very closely with the engineering team in figuring out, with the maximum effort, with this goal in mind, what are the features that we can go out with very quickly? So that's called 80-20 rule. So big rock's second is design. So after you have done identification and planning, you move on to designing your product. And there are 3 very popular kinds the way you design your product are wireframes, mockups, and prototypes. So what is a wireframe? Wireframe is the first step towards visualizing and making it your vision tangible, something that you can see, something. And that's with the wireframe. And with mockup and prototype, you make it tangible. You can touch that to your product. But until here, before you move to the design phase, you have everything just in a sentence, a blurb of alphabets, a vision on paper. Once you move to design phase, that's when it starts to become real. Whatever you have talked so far, now you're putting your vision on paper. So wireframe is the first step towards visualization, making something tangible. Mockup is a skin on a wireframe, and prototype is a clickable mockup. So wireframe is something, prototype is something that you don't necessarily, it doesn't have any code in the backend, but you can touch it, feel it, you can play with it. For an app, it is not connected in the backend with any code, but still it is very real. So that's what the mockups are, prototypes are. And the tools that are available for this wireframe mockup and prototypes are Whiteboard, PowerPoint. Balsamic is something that is extremely popular, and it's free for you to use, so you can go in and sign up. And any idea that you have in your mind, probably a game app that you thought you want to build, or any idea that you ever had, you can actually build it for yourself, and you can check it out. So that's a very cool application to play with. Lucidchart, Figma, Sketch, Envision. Envision is another app where you can companies build prototypes, and then Proto.io and Marvel, some of the newer apps that are coming in for wireframing and mockups and prototyping. So this is how it looks like. So wireframe is just the skeleton. Mockup is that you have put a little bit more color and look and feel to it, and then prototype is something that you can, it's the application built in, but it doesn't have any code, but you can still play around, you can do stuff with it. With that, the big rock number 3 is develop. So after you have designed it, you move to a phase where you develop your product. So one of the concepts that is really popular is Agile product development, right? With Agile, okay, let's learn about Agile a little bit, and then I will tell you my secret sauce on how it worked for me in real life. On paper, Agile product development for software development works really well, and it's a software development methodology. Where you estimate stories, you establish team velocity, prioritize and assign tasks for sprint using Agile. There are two very popular frameworks for Agile, Scrum and Kanban. And tools that you can use are Jira, and I have used TFS, Team Foundation Server, for prioritization, for assigning teams their tasks, the development team their tasks, and assigning users the story points and their velocity, and kind of doing all the fun stuff that you do with Agile. I have done that in TFS. Now, how it in the real world, no. For a lot of organizations, I don't know, I've worked with a number of teams, just Agile hasn't worked for us. And we started doing that. And delivering something in 2 weeks was just way too much of overhead for our teams. Engineering team felt that they're being rushed. They're spending a lot of time in just doing all this paperwork or process work that they need to do. They aren't getting a lot of time, enough time to deliver actually something, an executable code that they called that they were getting time to build. Then what we did after back and forth is we logged on a 4-week sprint. That worked a little bit better. On the business side, because Agile is something ongoing, iterative, they thought that they have hit a lottery. And now they can change things whenever they wanted. So they wanted to, oh, okay, this week I'm in this mood and I want this. And then second week, oh no, this is not important for us anymore, and now we want to deliver. This is important for us. And it's like Agile, as much iterative it is, as much it is we are Agile and we want to change and adapt. There, you still have a lock-in period, and you lock scope for at least your sprint time cycle. So what worked for me was a combination of waterfall, Agile, and Kanban. And we use Kanban boards for our bug tracking. This did not work. The prioritization or the Agile did not really work for our bug tracking and for development, for the deliverables of bug. So Kanban board worked really well. So figure out what works for your needs and your organization, how mature they are in the process. A lot of teams are still doing waterfall because they want to lock on the requirements before they start delivering. So it depends. Still there, we are from industry standpoints, I haven't seen the numbers really, but I don't think all the organizations are there yet with Agile. There's still a lot of maturity needs to come in and everybody's learning. As Scrum Masters and Agile, whatever they're called, leaders are learning themselves because the process itself is very Agile. You can mold it the way you want to. So everybody's just trying to figure out how best it works for their needs, for their organization. So this is how a sprint planning and tracking for an Agile product looks like. So these are the people who are assigned to any project, the developers, and how many user stories and story point velocity they have, and what are the story points and what are the remaining work is there. So you assign story point to each user story, and based on the velocity that has been established for the team, they start to work on that user story. And then based on how much they have consumed of that user story, then you have a remaining number. Those are the story points for that work that are remaining. That was the development. Now we are on the big rock number 4 called launch. Launch is really important for product managers, something that I learned from one of my manager and mentor, that how important a launch is for product manager. Until then, I thought that as long as I have done a great job of identifying the opportunity, building requirements, and work with an engineering team, aligned all my upstream and downstream teams to work together, all the deliverables, met my go live date, I guess I have done my job of a product manager. And my manager that's when it dawned on me, and he taught me actually that lesson, is howsoever great of a product you have built, how much sweat and blood you may have put into it, unless you see your project or your product to fruition by a successful launch, by successful readiness and landing, preparing right material for your product, making sure the right audiences are engaged, the way in which they can be engaged. After go live, you have proper solid backup plan, you have proper support plan, support teams have been taught, they're educated, there's enough material for them, you have great communication plan built. Unless it reaches to your audience in the way it is intended to be and your adoption is there, all the work is useless. And that's when I learned, oh yes, that makes sense. Because until then, I was trying to reach out to my marketing teams, and they were overbooked, and I wasn't getting any traction. But I was thinking that, okay, I've built the right product, and now it is for them to take care of and market this and build a plan. And that's when my manager said, it's not their problem, it is your problem. Newsflash. So if they cannot give time for you, if they cannot engage with you, you need to figure out what alternatives you have, because this is your problem. You can't just say that, oh, marketing team never responded to me. So that's when I had to actually learn the hard way of launching a product. And that very well is a responsibility of a product manager to see that your product launches successfully. Either you work with your teams in-house, either you consult, either you do it yourself. But it is your responsibility from identification of the opportunity to the launch of the opportunity, and after that too, that how that product landed to your audience, what data are you collecting, and until the end of life for that product, it is your responsibility unless you are handing it to somebody else to take care of it. But as a product manager, it doesn't end with the launch of the product or just making the code complete. So you are responsible for the life of that product. And before I go any further, it does say go-to-market readiness and landing, but launch is just a subset of go-to-market. Go-to-market is a far bigger concept where starting from marketing, communication, sales, landing, after post-launch activities, go-to-market is a big plan that you do. Launch is a subset of that go-to-market plan. So what is a launch? Launch is something where you introduce your new product to your target audience, or you announce new feature or the next version of your existing product. Tools for launch, there are no specific tools because there is no one size fits all. Every organization has different needs. Audience is different, product is different. Sometimes email campaign works, sometimes pamphlets work, sometimes something will work, sometimes something will not work. So there is no specific tool where you can go and do your go-to-market planning. There are a lot of guidance that tell you that, okay, this are checklist, if I can say so, that you can find a checklist of activities that you need to do when you plan for your product launch or your go-to-market strategy for your product, but there is no tool where you can go and do that planning. This is one of the framework that I actually utilized when I was launching my product and when I did not hear from my marketing team. And this is the framework that I read about. One of my mentor brought me up to speed with, and this is called AdCar. And what does AdCar mean? AdCar means awareness, D means desire, K means knowledge, A is action, and R is reinforcement. Bunch of acronyms. Again, as we go through this framework, what it means is, say your product is going to launch tomorrow. Then you start doing, it's like a campaign. It's like a go-to-market plan that you build basically using this framework or a model. It says awareness, so T minus 90. So tomorrow your product is going to go live. T minus 90, you start sending communication out to your target audience, of making them aware of something is coming. Hey, this is something that we are thinking, we have been working on this, and something is coming. So heads up. And then you move to a next phase. That's called desire. So T minus, say, that was 90, T minus 60. You send another communication out, building a desire. Why should they care about this? What is the benefit of this? So you list a lot of desire, creating excitement among your target audience. Then T minus 30, you send another email out that is knowledge. So you make them aware about how they can access this information. Is this going to be mobile app, or is this going to be on web? Would they need to sign up? Would they need their email address, phone number? So you make them, you inform them of what they would need to access this tool or this product that you are launching. And then the action, the D-Day. So that the day of the event, the day of the launch, you send them another communication out. Hey, our product is live. Go and check it out. This is what you would need, and here we are, and this is how you can access us and all that information. And then After T plus 30 or T plus 2 weeks, you send another reinforcement message out. That, hey, we went live a couple of weeks back, just wanted to remind you that you go ahead and access this link and you can download this, or you can access this, buy this and whatnot, whatever your messages or your product is. So this is the framework that I leveraged for my product at that time. And it was fairly successful with this. And along with that, so this is one framework for the communication to your target audience when you are doing launch. You still have to have your facts ready. So frequently asked questions, a document for facts. You have to have your support teams ready. Along with this, after we went live for 2 weeks, I had all hands on deck from development team, and it's called like white glove treatment. So white glove team. So you have all hands on deck, a different DL where around the clock somebody is monitoring that DL for any feedback that is coming in from our customers. So we want to make sure as much you may plan things right when you are launching, things may go wrong or most likely will go wrong. So you want to make sure that you are there when you hear any feedback.
Have you ever lived through or seen a team have to do a rollback, whether it's an internal or they have to postpone the launch date as a result? And how do you deal with that?
Rollback happened and it wasn't pretty.
Tough. Yeah.
It's really, and from...
How do you manage that? Like,
there is no good way to manage rollback. As much you need to plan for it, and you always, so when you are building your release plan, you always have a rollback plan. And I would copy and paste a standard verbiage that we had for the rollback. Oh, okay, we'll do, and this is how we are going to roll back. We never had to use it until a few months back. We really had to do rollback, and teams were not really prepared for that. There was no real communication plan because it is one of those things, right? Seattle, earthquake can happen anytime, but who really thinks that earthquake is going to happen, right? So you think that it's going to happen, and everybody talks about it, but you don't really think that you would ever need it. So I don't have a foolproof way to answer that question because we just scrambled. When we did rollback communication, weekend was not pretty, execs were mad, and it was a lot of stress, fumes, whatever. But I guess now it just only teaches you that you need to actually think about rollback because you can really need it in times of crisis. But we just made our way through somehow. So I wish I had a better answer or a way, a magic wand way that, oh, it was all smooth and nice, but it was not. But something for me to think about.
I appreciate the honesty.
So with that, the last bit and the biggest, another big rock of product management is assess and repeat. So after you have made your launch, the big thing that comes into play is analytics. And then customer and product feedback management. As you go through your product launch, you have a lot of feedback that you get from your customers, from a lot of channels you get from your sales, whosoever is frontline, from your support team, from your sales team, from your business development team, on social media, on surveys. So there are a lot of things there are a lot of channels from which feedback is coming. So you want to manage that feedback. So when we talk about analytics, we track success measures of the product. So we want to build, as we are building our product, given that we have already identified the goal that we want this product to meet, how are we going to measure that if that product is meeting that goal? So we build some kind of metric measurement into the product itself. This is how we are going to measure at these milestones or at these stops. So we want to measure success for that product so that we can see if whatever we have built is actually contributing to the goal that we set out for in the very beginning. Understand product or user behavior. So you want to understand how our product is doing in the market, how our users are interacting with our product. A lot of times we see seasonality into product. We see different user behaviors. In the morning time, the usage is high. In the evening, the usage is low. Summers, usage is really low. Winters, usage is high. So there are kind of a lot of different patterns. And we want to observe those patterns. The pattern could also be that our old age is using it too much, but our younger generation is not being. So you want to collect those feedback so that you can build your next set of engagement, communication plan, or even modification and updates to your product based on the pattern, the usage pattern that you are seeing. And drive insights on what is working, what is not working. What are the features that nobody is looking at and they are buried in too many links, and what is it that people are really playing with? So what are the things that are working in my product and what are the things that are not working? And probably sometimes they're like when I work on this Kaiser website and mobile app, even though something is very useful, but it is just buried somewhere deep that they can't even access. And so we learn that from all the analytics that we do on the product. So the tools that exist are Google Analytics, Adobe Tags that I have used in the past, and we use currently a mixture of Google Analytics and Adobe Tags, and they have been really popular in our organization so far. With that, now the emerging trend also is to look at product or user journey. So we don't only want to look at hard metrics such as page views, number of clicks, but we also want to look at that once user comes to our site, how are they navigating on our site? How are they playing on our mobile app? How are they using our product? How far are they going? When do they let it go? When are they frustrated? When are they happy with it? When their needs are met, right? So now there are new tools that are emerging that give us more insight into developing more value-based product. So these are some of the tools: Mixpanel, Amplitude, Hotjar, Pendo. These are some of the tools that help you get the visualization of that user journey, because that is becoming more and more important for the products that we are building. That how our customers are, if I'm getting only 5 people, but if they are showing high engagement on my site, I probably then need to work on a different strategy versus I'm getting 250 people, but they are spending very little time on my site. Right? So the strategy is very different on how I'm going to approach this. So that is what the difference between when you work with Google Analytics, Adobe Tags, or when you work on a user journey. And then customer and product feedback. So you want to collect the actionable feedback for product improvement, of course, and also synthesize user feedback in actionable way. So just collection is easy, because you can go and I can go to my support team, I ask for feedback and they give me a bunch of documents and recordings and whatnot. And email, people also reach out with their emails and they have questions. So there's email team and they give me a bunch of documents. Sales team has another set of documents. Business development team has another set of documents. So there is like documents and feedbacks everywhere. I go to Yelp, there are like gazillion reviews there. Right? So wherever you go, Twitter, gazillion reviews. Facebook, there are so many reviews because all of these pages exist for any organization. They are everywhere. They're every day. They are putting posts there. So how is a product manager getting to know the sentiment? How people are feeling about our product? What is the product sentiment? And now these are some of the tools that collect those different voices that your customers are putting out there and synthesize that for you so that you can drill down into one specific area and see where you are seeing the most negative feedback or highest feedback that, okay, this is what is working and people are mostly talking about this, or, oh, this is not working at all and probably we should dig more into. So those are the tools that are becoming very popular, and that is one area also that is up and coming for product managers. This helps you to improve your current product and also gives you an idea about new features and new products for future. So this is something that, again, ties back into your planning and identification and planning. Okay, with that, we move to our next topic for tonight, art of building your custom toolbox. So we have looked at different milestones, rocks of product management, and different tools that exist out there. Now, how do you think about tools that are good for your own needs? So custom toolbox depends upon organization. So the kind of organization you're working in. Is it a startup? Is it a small and medium business? Is it an enterprise? Project, what kind of project is it? Is it a hardware? Is it a software? Is it a telecommunication project? Is it cybersecurity project? Is it a big project, small project, internal project? It depends upon the variety of aesthetics of the project, basically. The choice of your tool will depend on that. Team's expertise. So a lot of the tools that we looked at Some of them require code lift. So is your team capable of doing coding and customize it for their own needs? Or you want to go with a tool that is a SaaS application and you just make your own account and anybody can use it. So that depends upon the team's expertise. So it will depend upon your choice of your tool on what kind of team expertise you have. Budget, big one, because a lot of times I've seen a lot of companies continue to use, especially smaller and startup companies, continue to use different applications that would offer 30-day free trial, right? So it depends upon how much is your budget and how much can you set aside for that tool. Security, for a lot of organizations, SaaS application works. For a lot of organizations, SaaS application doesn't work. As I said, in my healthcare, we would rather use something internal, and that is not as slick, not as effective, but for security reasons, we have to use our own applications. But for other companies, it may not be of a concern. So they can go ahead and use those SaaS applications too. So it depends if security is a concern for your organization or not. Resources. A lot of times, as I said, teams require lift, but a lot of times also you need resources to customize it. So do you have resources to custom build, or do you have resources? Actually, yes. So resources you have in-house, or do you have resources you will have to have from third party? Right? So it's even for marketing. There's a cool application that exists, but you don't have anybody to help you out with building the go-to-market plan. So you'll have to go ahead and hire a third party who can help you with that plan. Capacity. So how much capacity you have in your organization. And then the audience. How do you need something quick and dirty for your internal team? Or are you doing a client presentation? Or are you partnering with sales and doing a sales presentation? So it depends upon the tool. So if you're doing something quick and dirty, you may not want to invest in those fancy applications. You can do something on a whiteboard or on paper and do a presentation on PowerPoint, right? But you might want something more fancier, even with wireframe and prototyping and mockup. For a lot of times, I did Visio and we did whiteboarding for mockups, right? We never went and all the way to do prototyping until I came into doing where we are demoing it to our third parties or to our external parties. And then we would do like a full scale, high fidelity prototypes to show it to them and to gain approval from the teams. So these are some of the things to think about as you're thinking about tools for your own needs, for your organization, for your team, even recommending them. Make sure that you discuss these points in your organization. Long-term too, when I say capacity, actually, it's also taking into account scalability. So how do you only want their application that can, I mean, as I was saying, it's a shifting landscape. Application that exists today may not exist tomorrow. So do you want to invest into something that you don't know may exist 2 years down the road? Or do you want to, and some applications can't even support, they're so young, they can't support the growth that you may have over time. So over time, you may need 500 accounts, but they may not be able to support you to create those 500 accounts. So are they scalable? Are they there to grow with you as you grow? So that is something also to keep in mind. So beyond tools, setting product managers up for success. We saw the big rocks of product management and some of the tools that you need to set you up for success. But what are some of the other softer qualities or the art of product management that are necessary for you to be a successful product manager? Hustler. So you always have to, as a product manager, you always have to hustle to get things done because there's always so many things to do and you never have enough time to get those things done. One of my favorite stories that I tell people all the time is one time I needed a feedback or sign off from one of my stakeholders and he was traveling out of country back to back. One Friday, I knew that he was only there for that Friday. He had come back from a trip on Thursday, and he was again going to leave Sunday afternoon for another international trip. And I really needed his feedback or sign off for me to move forward. I wasn't getting a chance. I was not getting any traction from him over email. I stood outside his office and waited that he's going to go to restroom or probably to kitchen, right? And I'm going to, because he was on calls, I could see that he was on calls back to back. He has his headphones on and he was talking. But I walked with him when he was walking to restroom, that talking about him that, hey, I need sign off on this. And it's like, oh yeah, oh, I'm so sorry. So it was not that he wasn't giving me any attention on purpose, but it's just that it wasn't coming up on his radar because he was just so neck deep into other work that he was working on. But I need something, I need that for me to move forward. So a lot of times you have to figure out how to hustle, very easily I can say, oh, I never heard from him. What do I do, right? And the project date would move to 2 weeks out. But do I rather want to stick with the deliverable date and make it work somehow? Or do I just want to say, hey, I can't do anything. See, there are like 5 emails here where I tried to contact him, but what can I do, right? So you have to be in that hustler mindset. Scrappy. A lot of times, so large organization or small organization. A lot of times when I talk to people who work in startup and they're like, oh, I don't know if you would understand, I'm in a startup, you have worked in large organization. But it doesn't matter because even in large organization, they do have a lot of resources. They are never available for you on time whenever you need them because everything has a process. And in product management, because you are moving at 150 miles an hour, you are uncovering things as you go. You don't have 6 months time or even 6 weeks time to give somebody a heads up. As I was saying, like marketing team, I needed them, but they had a backlog of their own and they wanted me to contact them 6 months before. Heck, 6 months before, I didn't even know that I'll have a go live date, right? So there is no way that I can reach out to them. So you have to make things work. One time I needed a feedback on a product and my team who collects feedback and you can reach, so there is a team who you can reach out to and they would demographic and you give them your need and you need feedback on this product, on this particular feature, and they would source people, like-minded people, and get you feedback in form of survey or focus group or whatever you need. They will organize that for you. I was working on a children-based application or an application, and I needed feedback from those children or parents of those children. And they couldn't in time arrange that for me. My development team was waiting. I needed to prioritize work. I did a pizza party in the cafeteria of my office Friday afternoon. I said, all the parents or my teammates, bring your own kids and we are having a pizza party here. I ordered pizza, had them bring all their kids, and we had a fun time that afternoon after 3 to 5 p.m. And I had one desk set up where I had those surveys and I asked kids some questions, parents some questions, and hey, I had 25 feedback right from there, something for me to get started, right? So you have to be scrappy enough to think about how can I get through this without spending a lot of resources and time, because even though you may have resources, you do not have time. Curious. Very important to stay curious. One of the myths of product management is, even though I come from engineering background, people ask me, oh, do you need to be an engineer to be a product manager? No, not at all. You just need to be intelligently curious. As long as you are intelligently curious, engineers are there. You work with engineering team. You don't want to do their job. They are there to do their job. And sometimes if you are playing too much of your engineer hat, you can burn your bridges with those teams. So you don't want to step on their toes. You just want to be intelligently curious. I have numerous whiteboarding sessions with architects, with software architects, with all these developers. And they do all this designing. And I'm just intelligently curious, asking questions. Okay, so you think you want to do it this way? How about we did it this way, right? Just being, suggesting something. And then a lot of times you find that they are also like, oh yeah, that sounds about right. Yes, we can do it this way too. And so you just need to be just curious, just asking intelligent questions rather than holding yourself back that you don't have some kind of degree, because there are professionals that you work with that they have expertise in their fields. They don't need that person to do their job. Open mind. Again, don't get married to your own idea. And it's very easy. You get emotional because you have worked on that idea starting from identification of that idea. Like you practically gave birth to that idea. And so you get emotionally attached as you see it through fruition. But the big point is to keep an open mind all the time. Be inclusive of other ideas. Make it change, evolve, let it evolve over time, because it is going to take some other shape from where it started. And as it goes through the different rocks and different cycles, it will evolve. But you don't have to get, and as easier said than done. I remember one time we changed course and we shut it down completely after I had worked on it for 1.5 years with my sweat and blood. And then they closed down that program completely because of some other strategic business decision that they had made. And I cried that day. I was like, how can you? And those were, that weekend was one of my most terrible weekend of my professional career. But as I came back, you put yourself together, and then you again brace yourself for another ride. And over time, now I see the importance of that decision. It was one of the best decisions that company made to remain competitive, to continue to deliver business value. So that's what you have to be open to, that whatever I am doing, the customer is your North Star. As long as I'm delivering value to my customer, I'm not married to this idea or this solution. Rather, I am fascinated, or I am most interested in solving that customer problem. As long as you think in those terms, that I need to solve that customer problem, I'm not going to fixate myself on the solution, I guess you will have a much better, easier journey throughout that product life cycle. Build credibility. Another extremely important trait for a product manager. You have to watch back of your team. You have to sometimes throw yourself in front of the bus for your team. You have to have a big heart for your team so that you can build that credibility. Because you work with so many teams, and every team has their own axe to grind. They are working on multiple other projects. They have a lot of other priorities. You have to build relationship with them so that they continue to prioritize your work. They see the importance of your work. And sometimes even if they have to burn midnight oil, they work for your project, because your project or your product will not have a smooth sailing. There will be times when you will run into some or the other issues where either your UX team needs to work overnight because you have a presentation tomorrow morning and some feedback came in really late, but you need that something tomorrow morning. And unless you have built that credibility, you have spent that much time in building relationship, you won't be able to go and say, hey, I really need you to do overtime tonight because I need this tomorrow. But if you have invested in building a relationship, you don't even have to say it, because your team will be there for you. And that is the kind of product manager you want yourself to be able to build that kind of credibility and friends around you. Stay focused. Extremely important trait for product manager, because you get pulled in all the directions. Every team has some idea. Every team thinks that they know what customer needs. Every team has some idea that they think would make the product better. So you have to hold yourself accountable. That's where data-driven really comes in. Bring the data, talk to your people, talk to the teams who are coming up with different ideas, suggestion. Hey, let's go back to the drawing board and let's think about it if it makes sense from whatever feedback numbers we are seeing. If it makes sense, we'll change course. But it is not it's not about being somebody's pet idea. Even if your CEO is saying that, hey, I think this is the design I really like, you don't go by what you like. Okay, let's do usability study and see what those numbers come in. If 80% of the people say that, okay, they really like the design that you are saying, we'll go with it. But if only 20% people, 25% people say, hey, then something is wrong, right? So you have to stay focused, keep yourself grounded with data, and that is your response, so that you are not playing favorites with anybody, or you are not doing things that you think the other person is saying and by being very nice to that person, right? It is all about you're making decision based on data, and that's how you will stay focused on what you are there to deliver. Risk taker. Again, as much it is about data, it is another side of the coin. You will never have enough data. So it is funny because everybody talks about data, but it is a lot of times as product manager, as you grow in your career, you develop gut and intuition as well. And you have to take risk. A lot of times you become successful. As with the rollback plan, things work, but a lot of times, sometimes they don't work. And that's the risk, because you really want to invest 50 hours in developing a very intense, robust rollback plan, or do you just want to take your chance and just go with it, right? That I want to just hit that deadline, I want to get this out the door, okay, whatever, it has never happened in 3 years, how it's going to happen this time, and let's just go with it, right? So you take that risk to meet that deadline, to make things work, so you have to have that kind of agility and that capability to take risks. Because you will not have a lot of data a lot of time. So you'll have to make those decisions and see how it plays out. For that, to be risk taker, you have to also have to prep your teams around you that you are taking the risk. If your team and your executives and your stakeholders are not conditioned for taking risk, probably you are not in an organization or in a company of people where you can take risk. So make sure that people around you, teams around you, your executives around you understand the value in taking risk. And you should go and be upfront with them that we can either spend 3 months to do an extensive study on this and spend $15,000, or we can build this kind of MVP or a pilot and just roll it out and see how it does in the market, right? So make sure that you are taking risks, but not being too risky by taking risks in a blind way. Learn something new. So it's always fun to learn something new. I recently learned about, as a product manager, it just helps your brain juices flowing, because you always work with different teams on different topics, on different subjects, with different team members. Not one situation remains the same all the time. So when you continue to learn something new, it just continues to keep yourself very open to new things, and you are more receptive to learning new things. So I just suggest to product managers that continue to learn something new. Don't become stale. You guys all are here tonight. That shows in itself that you already have that in you. It takes a lot on cold evening on a weekday to get yourself out of your chair, sofa, office, home, and get yourself here, right? So that's another great trait to have for a product manager. I recently learned about a site called Catchfire, and it's a nonprofit organization or a website that connects people with nonprofit organizations that are looking to have some volunteer hours. Great way for you to build some skill set. And I went there and I saw from technology to management to social media to, they need people from all different walks of life. So whatever you are doing in your current life, you can go and assist them in those projects, or you can also go and volunteer for some new project that would expose you to learning some new skill. Give back to community. Be a mentor to somebody. It's one of the most rewarding experience that I have in my life. I can't even tell you. I started doing this thanks to product school. I was one of their first speakers when they opened their Seattle chapter. And since then, I have been doing these guest speaker sessions or mentoring sessions. And it just opens up. It just opens you. I always say that I walk in wise and I walk out wiser, because there are always some great questions, some great thinking points that I get to hear from this great community. So just be on the lookout, be a mentor to whoever you can. There are always people who need help, who can be helped by your guidance, by some of your time, just having a coffee with them. So figure out how you can give back to the community, and that would help you. And then be patient. Continue to do the right things, and you'll see yourself maturing over time. It doesn't happen overnight, and just give yourself time. And you will see that gut, that intuition that I talk about as product manager, it just comes over time. And then these are some of the other resources for product manager. So these are some of the great books. I would be honest, I haven't read all of them myself, but I have seen them referenced a lot as great books for product managers to read. And then these are some of the other resources that are not necessarily product specific, but as I said, right, reading something new on different topics, so they are on different ideas and how they evolved and how they didn't evolve. So some of the new exciting topics to just read about. And then final thought. So how so much you can learn about product management, how so much you can plan, it is never going to happen the way you think, the way you plan. And actually, that's where the growth is. The intuition or the gut that I'm talking about, that you get over time just by going through those pitfalls. That's when the rubber hits the road. That's when you realize, oh, this is what I shouldn't have done. Oh, I should have done this differently. Oh, next time I'm going to do it this way. So this happens, accumulates over time. They say that is why it's so hard to build artificial intelligence, because our brain has that superpower. And I read it very recently in one of the articles, is our brain has a capacity to collect our past experiences and in second process it, so that becomes our intuition and gut. Because that's what it is. It is a collection of our experiences built into, that gives us guidance, that does something in our tummy, that, oh, this is what it should be, this is how I should be, this is how I should be. That's what our experiences in life are, and that's how you become mature as product managers.